Moving on from brother to father and son relationships in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Michelangelo and Master Splinter have a complicated relationship. But it didn't always start out that way. As time has progressed throughout this franchise, we've explored more of the parental-child relationship dynamics that Splinter has with all four of his sons. In the 80s series, yes, they do go to Splinter for wisdom and guidance and leadership, but in all actuality, they all kind of treat themselves kind of like roommates. Before I finish my point with 80s Splinter, I actually need you to walk with me and jump ahead to the 2012 universe. There's a duality to Splinter. There's the sensei and the parent. And one of the themes in Ninja Turtles that every character always has to learn about, Splinter included, is balance. So one hand washes the other with Splinter in terms of having to be a nurturer and a protector. This is becoming more common knowledge, but most 2012 fans are familiar with this famous soundbite.
My youngest and most impulsive son, Michelangelo, is naturally gifted and has more raw talent than his three brothers combined. If I can just get him to focus more on his training.
I want to talk more about the last thing that Splinter says, where he emphasizes Michelangelo's focus problem. Because that is the root of what makes the relationship so complicated between every Michelangelo and Master Splinter variant across the Turtleverse. In the very first episode of the 1987 series, Michelangelo is the only turtle that Master Splinter refers to as a master of his weapon, speaking to him in a very high regard as it pertains to his craft. And throughout the series, we constantly see focus being at the root of the lessons that Splinter is trying to teach Michelangelo. The problem in their relationship lies with the fact that Michelangelo always has a disconnect with when it's time to see Splinter as the sensei versus when it's time to see him as the father. This also coincides with the fact that Michelangelo is the member of the Hamato clan with the highest threshold of emotional intelligence. When Splinter tries to teach and instill discipline in Michelangelo, it has a hard time resonating because for Mikey, they're not bonding. Stuff goes over Michelangelo's head, Master Splinter gets frustrated with him, and that's kind of their shtick. Splinter needs Michelangelo to understand that constantly putting off being serious until you absolutely have to will eventually come back to bite you in the shell. Case in point, the Battle Nexus Returns episode. And if there's one thing that Splinter loves to do, it's give his sons a taste of their own medicine when they're not listening to him. Another funny example of this is in the Bayverse with the Hashi scene. Splinter, once again, knows his son very well and knows that he has a focus problem, so if Michelangelo really is hungry and really wants to just stop being in trouble, he's gonna confess to the fact that they broke his rule of going topside. Like I mentioned in my Michelangelo-Raphael relationship video, Splinter, like Raph, looks to Michelangelo for his litmus test for understanding compassion. It took all the love that Splinter had for Mikey and then some to finally find the strength to forgive Baron Draxum. Not to bring up the Mikey and Raph video again, but remember when I talked about how Michelangelo quit the team and Raphael was the one who brought him back? Well, that was in due part due to months of friction in the IDW universe between Michelangelo and Master Splinter. In the comics, after Shredder is defeated, Splinter puts him on a t-shirt and takes over the Foot Clan. Michelangelo had strong reservations and problems with this, and eventually, it reached its breaking point between him and Master Splinter in terms of them seeing eye to eye on things. Up to the point where they had to square up and fight over how they were going to handle raising a group of orphans that the Turtles took in. And for anybody who has issues coming to grips with how they were raised and their parents' decision making with what they did to you when you were kids, this is a very relatable story. Because Michelangelo does not want these innocent kids to have to go through what him and his brothers have gone through being under Splinter's guidance and mentorship. After going the distance with his father, Splinter finally wises up. And this added layer of nuance to the relationship even shows up in the Last Ronin universe. And it's through the plot device of Splinter's journal that Michelangelo keeps close to him throughout the entire story. Through the flashback sequences in the Lost Years, we feel and see Michelangelo's resentment for not heeding Master Splinter's lessons sooner. Michelangelo feels some sense of responsibility for his family's death for not taking things more seriously throughout the years. And in between the flashback and flash forward sequences in the Lost Years, we see the pages of Master Splinter's journal and all of the different practices of mindfulness that he was using to try and teach his son. Throughout each issue, it's like you're reading it with Michelangelo in real time. And it's actually quite sad because we're witnessing Michelangelo slip further and further into the darkness with each flashback. And of course, all of this is the build-up leading up to the beginning of The Last Ronin, issue number 1, where we finally understand where Michelangelo is at mentally. Where we see that he has fatally gone past the point of what Splinter was trying to teach and instill in him. Now he's hyper-focused on finally ending the war. But through meeting Casey Marie Jones and understanding that with her the Hamato clan will live on, he sees the error of his ways. And I think that it's a safe sentiment to say that Splinter did find peace in death, knowing that his son that he worried the least about did put all the pieces together where it mattered most.